Good day. I'm Andrea Spindle, Executive Director of the Canadian Anti-Semitism Education Foundation, which for 2 decades has been raising the alarm about increasing anti-Semitism in Canada and globally. Before introducing today's topic and our special guest, Dr. Rachel Ehrenfeld, I would like to thank our wonderful co-sponsors who link arms with CAEF regularly to assist us in hosting brilliant speakers. Thanks to the American Center for Democracy and its Economic Warfare Institute, the Lawfare Project, the Mattathias Project, the Canadian Institute for Jewish Research, and Jew Hatred Canada, the Israel Activist Calendar, Herut Canada, Club Z, the Lodger Center Congregation, the NGO Committee at the UN, Israel Committee of Sonoma County, the Massachusetts Anti-Semitism Synagogue Task Force, the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, Americans for Peace and Tolerance, the New Hampshire for Israel, Coalition for Hindus of North America, Tafsik, International Christian Embassy Jerusalem in Canada, European Lawyers for Israel, Stand With Us Canada, and Addith Israel Congregation. Do note that our list of sponsors has grown to include more American entities from more cities across the US and more allies from different faiths. It appears to matter not to the students and professors whose Jew hatred campaigns are illogical, irrational, anti-liberal, based on lies and historical revisionism, that they themselves benefit immensely from Jewish and Israeli innovations and scholarship. We're seeing insane, malicious calls to boycott Israel, cut ties, refuse academic exchanges, divest from Israeli products and services, and sanction all who are connected in any way with Israel. This ludicrous notion of cutting off one's nose to spite one's face is not easily understood. So how can it be explained? And how is it that average people who claim to value liberalism, who object to racism and other forms of hatred, seem ready to tolerate all forms of discrimination and hatred towards Israel and the Jewish people, even when directed at their friends, neighbors, and colleagues? Most astonishingly, and much more difficult to explain, is the mantra from so-called progressive Jews who use the language of social justice to call for the eradication of Israel. The hatred on campuses and in the streets and malls among unions, media, and even some politicians is no longer about a mere boycott of Israel and Israeli products. It is a call for the total destruction of Israel and the annihilation of the Jewish people. How does one then explain the Jewish presence in these demonstrations and even in leadership positions in the anti-Israel movement? Today's guest speaker is a leading authority on several related areas that provide a background as to how we got to the place we're in today, where free speech advocates cancel conservative speech, where freedom of religious expression is denied Jews and Christians, where a desire for equitable outcomes has replaced equality of opportunity, and where diversity no longer applies to diversity of ideas and opinions, but only to skin color. And those of Asian background are suddenly white adjacent and subject to the same nonsensical and destructive application of critical race theory as are all people of white European backgrounds. We learned from the Torah portion last week that encouraging others to honor God is a moral or righteous act for Jews that brings Kadesh Hashem, or honor to God. And the opposite occurs when a Jew acts immorally in the presence of others, either Jews or Gentiles. And this is called Chilul Hashem, dishonoring God. These concepts may mean nothing to a secular Jew, but the latter well describes the behavior of the most anti-Jewish financier of global Jew hatred, George Soros, about whom our guest has much to say. Dr. Rachel Ehrenfeld is the founder and president of the New York-based American Center for Democracy and its Economic Warfare Institute, which encompasses economic warfare and weapons of mass effect, which include suppression of free speech, disinformation, political subversion, indoctrination, political Islam and lawfare, corruption, terrorist financing, narco-terrorism, the links between global criminal and radical networks and jihadi terrorist groups, and money laundering, as well as cybersecurity. Dr. Ehrenfeld focuses on recognizing patterns of seemingly unrelated domestic and foreign events as they link to threaten the US political, social, economic, and financial systems and other matters related to its national security, and I suggest by extension to Canada's security as well. Dr. Ehrenfeld's background includes organizing many international conferences and workshops, providing briefings, planning war games, testifying on terrorist financing, advising US and other government agencies, and also providing expert testimony in US courts. In 2008, Dr. Ehrenfeld took on a Saudi billionaire and terrorist financier who sued her for libel in London, England. She countersued him in New York and initiated and successfully lobbied for the Libel Terrorism Protection Act, known now as Rachel's Law, in New York State, and it has been adopted in other states as well and federally in the US. She has more than 1,500 publications to her credit and several books, including The Soros Agenda. Dr. Ehrenfeld was a visiting scholar at Columbia University's Institute of War and Peace, a research scholar at the New York University School of Law, a fellow at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies and Jesus College at Cambridge University, and was a research fellow at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. She has a Ph.D. in criminology from the Hebrew University School of Law, an MA in criminology from Tel Aviv University School of Law, and a BA in political science and criminology from Bar-Ilan University. She's the recipient of several prestigious awards. The organization she founded, American Center for Democracy, is dedicated to exposing threats to free speech and to improving and securing national security for her country and for Canada. I'm honored to now invite Dr. Rachel Ehrenfeld to present on our topic, Soros is no Dreyfus, the Soros Agenda to Change America and his Anti-Israel Crusade. If you have questions, please use the Q&A on your screen to post your questions. And please, if you're exchanging comments in the chat, be respectful. Thank you. And now on to Rachel Ehrenfeld.
Thank you, Andrea. I haven't heard my bio read so carefully for a long time. Thank you. The topic is serious, and Soros' activities both against the United States, really Western civilization, and the Jewish state of Israel are something that many people should, more people should pay attention to, all people. Of course, the Soros Open Society Foundation denies that whatever they are doing is against the United States, against the Constitution, against our freedoms, against our rights, and against really the existence of the Jewish state of Israel. However, Soros is not supportive of the Jewish state of Israel. He doesn't think that the Jews, and he wrote about it, and I cite him in the book. There are many citations in the book. The book is only 100 pages or less and has 150 or more pages of references and citations. So it has been highly vetted. I didn't make up anything. I'm citing Soros at length. He said that, well, the Jews really don't need state. It's tribal. It's tribalism. The state of Israel, okay, but not the Jewish state of Israel. So, and he has been a supportive of the Oslo Accord, of course, and his son, Alex, had published a letter explaining, well, very deceivingly, as they usually do. Even the name of the Open Society Foundation is deceptive. He claims to work for Open Society while what he's doing, in effect, is closing the society, is dividing the society. His plans to do that and the strategy that he has been using ever since, and of course money, billions of dollars to do that, are actually referenced in the book. And not all the funding is listed there because it's impossible actually to know exactly how much money he had given to whichever foundation and organizations and individuals. The links are very convoluted, and the Open Society Foundation is notorious for being opaque, and it received the grade of really zero transparency a few years ago by an international organization that looks into transparency of big organizations. So Alex Soros said that, well, they are supporting, he like his father is supporting the two-state solution for Israel. The fact that the Palestinians are preaching for, calling for the annihilation of the Jewish state of Israel doesn't seem to bother him, didn't seem to bother his father or the organization that they are funding. And although Alex Soros had admitted in his letter that what Hamas has done was a horrific attack, but Israel's response is exaggerated. It is really causing what the South Africans are saying, claim to the International Court of Justice, is genocide. Moreover, it is also that there is starvation because the Israelis are not letting supply go to Gaza. They are disturbing it. Nothing about Hamas stealing the supplies. There are, I don't know how many tons of food had been sent to Gaza. And if you look at pictures of, they have been, they don't have homes to go back to in many areas, but they all voted for, or most of them voted for Hamas. And many of them actually participated in the October 7 rapes, killings, and looting of the Jewish civilians and the Jewish villages. So, but that kind of doesn't really seem to bother him. He denies, of course, Alex, that they are funding any Palestinian terrorist organizations. Well, they are not funding any Palestinian US designated terrorist organization. He's making a distinction. Well, many of the Palestinian terrorist organizations have been designated as such by Israel. And it has been published widely by the Israeli government over the years. But he makes a distinction, and he may not be, and he or the organization may not be directly supporting or directly funding any of the US designated organizations, but we know that the US designation is not always in time and conclusive and inclusive, and especially not with this administration. And there has been a lot of indirect funding. There is, for example, a big foundation based in San Francisco, the Tides Foundation, that has special projects and very big left, usually, donors. And Soros had given billions of dollars to Tides over the years, and other organizations, similar organizations, who then go ahead and allocate the money to the projects and to organizations participating in the project, which are, many of them are unsavory, many of them are working with Hamas, many of them are working with the PLFP, BDS, you name it. So when a spokesperson for Soros several years ago was asked, well, what do you say about this? And he said, well, you know, we are giving so much money out. How do you expect us to know where the money is going? Okay, that's not, I think that's not a very good excuse, especially in view of the heavy support of the Open Society foundations and other Soros-related, well, all those Soros-related organizations, both Alex and George, that are funding now many of the demonstrations in campuses, on the streets of anywhere, everywhere. It's not only in the United States, it's not only Columbia, it's not only NYU, it's not only Harvard, it's not only Northwestern, it's not only Rutgers, it's not only McGill, and other universities and colleges. There are many others who are funding it. He is not the only one. But they are helping, and they actually started funding such organizations even before Israel started responding militarily to Hamas attacks. So everything was all ready, and there were instructions even to organizations that are operating in high schools, what kind of signs to carry, what kind of arguments to make, what kind of slogans to yell. And this is even to high school. It's not only to colleges and universities. I'm not aware about elementary schools, but I wouldn't be surprised about that either. So this all, it is very troublesome, to say the least. And so people who are criticizing, and you see in the media more and more criticism of Soros' sponsorship of such organizations. And of course, they are immediately labeled as anti-Semites. Well, no, you can certainly criticize and point out Soros' activities both against the United States and Israel and any other country, like Hungary, for example, and not be an anti-Semite. His policies are not favored by many people and many governments and many countries. So the way he started with his plans to change America back in 1993, when he started his Open Society Institute in New York, in Manhattan, he started really going after the legal system in the United States. Well, there is not much law and order in the US these days. Defund the police, criminals are being sometimes arrested and being released, just released to the streets, and they are arrested again. Maybe the first offense was beating somebody over the head. The next one is stabbing somebody or raping somebody. So it is not surprising that Americans don't feel safe. And in poll after poll, and there are many polls now, especially before the election in the US, people are full of fear. And there is a lot of mayhem in the streets, and homelessness and drugs, and it is really everywhere. And when people, he's not the only one, but he started this movement, and he was really the head of the spear. He was really the head of the spear, and many others have joined him. But he really was the one who planned it out, had the plan, and many others who, communism never died in the United States and never died anywhere. So many joined, and many have been, in the name of so-called justice, have been funded for all kinds of many programs. It's racial justice, it's climate justice, it's Palestinian justice, it's transgender justice, you name it, they have been funding it. So you could, this is really in general, the book itself is focusing more on the United States, especially because I was thinking about the coming elections, and but also has chapters about Israel and other countries where he has left his mark, and they are still licking the wounds. So this is regarding illegal migration, drug addiction, politics, foreign policy, and I also detail the influence of people who are linked with Soros and have been linked for years on policies of the Biden administration, policies at the UN, policies in many international organizations, including Europe. As Canadians, Trudeau has his own leftist agenda, and I guess you Canadians are enjoying that every day. So if you have questions, please go ahead.
Absolutely. I'm going to move to the questions. A couple to pick up on what you said. You said the open society is not transparent, but there are usually reporting requirements. If they're not transparent, is there cause or means to go after him?
Well, there is nothing. It depends really on the authorities. If there are now calls in Congress to investigate and to look into more carefully into open society foundations funding. Because the United States has is special, really having a free speech actually enshrined in the Constitution, many things are allowed in this country which would not be allowed in any other country. So funding all kind of demonstrations that sometimes and often become violent, well, they didn't really think that initially they are not giving it to create violence, they are giving it to the people so they can express themselves and speak freely. The fact that they become violent, well, they can always blame the police, right? Or right-wing organizations that were challenging somebody. There are many ways to really skirt around these issues. And apparently the IRS, the charity laws in the United States there are many loopholes, and apparently they know how to use each and every one. In other countries, for example, he faced the Open Society Foundation, his source, faced the Hungarian government rejection and opposition to what they were doing in Hungary. And they were required by law to report like every other foreign organization that operates in Hungary. Instead of doing that, they didn't want to be constrained. They went to the international media and complained that Orban is anti-Semite. Everything that he's doing is against Soros because Orban is anti-Semite. Well, Orban apparently knew what he was doing, and this is not to say that there was no anti-Semitism in Hungary. However, Orban knew what he was doing because he didn't want, since Soros had a university, his Open Society, his Eastern European University, based in Budapest at the time for many years, and having his organization, the Open Society, also operate there. They were working with the left, and they were working against Hungarian values, religion, the government, of course. And so the government decided that they have had enough. So Soros didn't want to comply with the laws. Instead, he went to to the international media, had even the United States government intervene and say, well, no, Hungary shouldn't close the university. Anyway, Soros decided to close the university and moved the campus to Berlin and to Vienna. So they are operating from there.
Dr. Ehrenfeld, at the time, I think that Bibi Netanyahu actually defended him as well, which was shocking at the time.
Well, it was not shocking. He said, I mean, Bibi said the right thing. To criticize Soros's policies does not mean that you are an anti-Semite. If you are making anti-Semitic comments, if you say that he's doing whatever he's doing because he's Jewish, that's another story. But
Right.
Soros, who was born in a very in a family that was really had a Jewish background, but didn't observe anything. When he grew up, he said, well, he became agnostic. He doesn't see himself as Jew anymore, only when somebody is attacking him, apparently. And he said that, well, the good thing about being Jewish is because the Jews are genius. There are so many Jewish geniuses. So that's really something that he really appreciated. That's okay. But that's what he has written in several of his books. But he had many actually anti-Semitic comments, and he attacked Israel. He distorted Israel history. Really, it is reading like it was written by Arafat.
Is he not concerned that eradication of Israel will lead to genocide?
Well, they are claiming now that what Israel is supporting and what the South African government, who went to the International Criminal Court, argued that Israel is actually committing genocide. So this is truly, and Arya Nair, who was the head of the Open Society Institute and Open Society Foundation later, very close to Soros, had very much on the left, had actually said recently that indeed he finds Israel committing genocide and starvation, deliberate starvation. So he's very close to Open Society and to Soros. So you hear it from his people all the time. And they are arguing actually what Hamas and Iran are saying, and other lovers of the Jews. That is what is going on.
Can I ask about other countries' involvement? We've heard here that Qatar is behind some of the funding on campus. We assume Iran is driving it. I read an article in the American Thinker that the Network Contagion Research Institute had identified Neville Ray Singham as a major funder of the protests, which is the Chinese Communist Party. And one of the questions in our Q&A here is from Claire Lopez, who asks about Turkish involvement. So maybe you can see if these are linked. Are these linked?
So there are Qatar is a major funder of Hamas. Qatar has been also working with the Taliban. Qatar has been working with Iran. Qatar has been funding all radical Islamic organizations and helping with radical Islamic countries to spread political radical Islam. That's what they have been doing. And this is supporting and spreading the Muslim Brotherhood all over the world. Hamas is the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. And just this week in the funeral of Raisi in Iran, there was really a summit meeting on the sideline of Hamas, Iranian officials, Turkish officials, Taliban, Houthis, all the Guardia was there, really, all the terrorists. This was a terrorist international, all of them met there and probably coordinated a few more steps in advance. You can bet on that. Qatar is a major funder. Turkey, which is also Muslim Brotherhood under Erdogan, is also funding Hamas, and Hamas members are actually training and staying in Turkey. You have also Hamas is training in Pakistan. And Pakistan is a radical Sunni, but they are really coalescing around the issue of the elimination of Israel, and Israel, the Jewish state of Israel, And that is the first step. They really want to dominate the world. They want to go after the big Satan, after the United States next. And they, if you heard, if you saw anything online or in the news about the funeral of Raisi, people were yelling and chanting and calling for death to Israel and death to the Jews and death to America. That's what they were yelling. And despite these very loud and public demonstrations of hatred to America, the Americans are continuing to support them. Why? This administration continues to support them. That is going on. This is, and you see that other countries like Egypt now is apparently have big exercises and military exercises closer to the Israeli border. They have been arming themselves very heavily. All of a sudden, they are also supporting Hamas. They don't want Hamas. They don't want the Muslim Brotherhood. They actually really fought and supposedly successfully throughout the Muslim Brotherhood leadership, at least from Egypt. But when it comes to eliminating Israel, if the general Islamic leadership is to try to eliminate Israel, if they feel that this is a time to move forward, like one of the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood pro-Hamas groups in Michigan said, hey, we are getting to the White House. We are influencing the White House. We are influencing Congress. We will influence everything. We will run this country. Okay, this is what is happening. And I understand that in Canada, by the way, there are many Muslims, not, well, quite radical Muslims who are participating, who are members of Congress, very vocal in local communities, organizing demonstrations all the time for the demise of the Jewish state of Israel. So this is happening in the West because the West did not want to recognize the Islamic threat. And there is still time to do something about it. The question is, would the leadership, either in Canada, in Israel, in England, which are now facing election, and New Zealand, in Australia, where actually Malaysia, which is also run by Anwar Ibrahim, who is a Muslim brother, very devoted Muslim brother, is also helping Hamas and actually trying to subvert as much of the opinion of the Australians and influence them to go out and demonstrate against the Jewish state of Israel, to support any international actions against Israel. This is going on all over the world.
It looks like the major English-speaking democracies all have elections coming up between US, UK, and Canada. We could see an increase on the left, or we could be, I guess, pleasantly surprised if there's a major change in the other direction. But is Soros funding these elections and working against?
Soros has been the biggest funder of the Democrat Party in the United States. He has been funding the elections of anybody who is running for office. DAs, prosecutors, judges, where they are elected, secretaries of states, anybody running for any position in municipal, whatever, they are trying to fill them all with left-oriented people, so-called progressives, or radical Muslims, whatever, who are also considered sometimes to be progressive. And whether they are actually qualified or not, but they are funding the election. And as Alex Soros said when he took over from his father last June, he said, well, he's more radical than his father. And apparently he has been funding, giving even more money for electing as many Democrats, progressive Democrats as possible.
You mentioned that he moved, Soros moved his university into Germany. Is he established, does he have branches of the foundation in all these, in many European
Well,
countries?
the foundations have been operating in more than 120 countries.
Wow.
And have probably 150, 170, I don't know. There is always some representation. And there has been changes now in how the foundation is shelling out money since Soros came in. But money goes, and the focus is really changing because so much the Biden administration, which has been heavily supported by Soros and actually executing the Soros agenda, has made so many changes, which really started with the Obama administration, that they see this as a unique opportunity to really hit the nail on its head and really finish what Soros started in changing America. He must be tickled pink because of the successes that he sees in demonstrations against Israel, bringing Israel, the Jewish state, to international criminal court, all kind of actions against Israel. Anthony Blinken is very close to Soros. Many most high office holders in the Biden administration have links to the Soros organizations, and they are doing what he set out to do. Now, again, he's not the only one, but he was really the leader, and he was really the person who figured out how to go after that, because he developed a special plan of how to get these changes made without going to Congress all the time in order to change the laws. So when you elect DAs that actually do not enforce the law, well, you don't need to change the law, because if the law is not enforced for over time, then, you know, other things are taking place and the law is being discarded. So this is really creating the changes on the ground. He has been very good at that, and he has been very successful, unfortunately. And people really didn't pay attention. I wrote back in 1995, 96, that long time ago, in the Wall Street Journal and other papers, that this was early on when I realized what he was planning to do. I said that unless he is challenged, Soros will be able to change the political landscape of the United States. I was right. I didn't have a crystal ball, but I understood what he was saying, and unfortunately, I was right.
Was it largely because of the amount of money he's been able to throw at this?
No, it's not the money. Actually, buying politicians is not very expensive, okay? He's buying many, but buying politicians is not that expensive. Changing the system with a little bit of money and really tying people to the organization to be dependent on it, that's the policy also of allowing people of drug legalization. You want people to be dependent on the government, on the health system, wherever that will give them that, or homelessness. They should be dependent on the people. Bringing in illegal migrants, they should be dependent on the government. This is the whole idea of really creating more and more dependency, and instead of individualism, and he's not for capitalism either, despite the fact that it made him so wealthy. People didn't pay attention. He worked slowly and successfully.
That's a huge contradiction, and it really struck me in your book, and I had trouble getting my mind around it. He's the biggest capitalist, and he's anti-capitalist. How does that play out? How do you explain that?
He's not the only one. Only they don't. The rest of them um, don't actually. They don't want to deny capitalism to others, and they don't make all kind of statements against it. But there are many. I mean, there are many billionaires on the left who are giving money like it's growing on trees.
Are there any on the other side? Like who is opposing him? What forces, institutions, or people are opposing him?
Well, there are people who are opposing him, but really not very forcefully. And I think that the difference is also between the beliefs of people who are conservative, Republicans, capitalists, and those who are socialists, communists, so-called progressives. Those who are the capitalists, the conservatives, are for individual freedom. You can do whatever you want. You should be able to do whatever you want. You should be able to make as much money as you want. And the government should actually be supportive towards that goal by not restricting you with all kinds of terrible laws that prevent you from doing business, that cost a lot of money, that make business unworthy to go to. On the other hand, so they think, oh, okay, so they are not working with each other like the left. The left supports each other all the time, even if they have some differences. So take, for example, this interesting coalition of the Greens, which is the Islamic radical Muslims, and the Reds, which is the progressives, the Democrats, the communists, whatever, socialists. Although they have differences, for example, the Islamists, and you have it in Canada, I know, they went out against Trudeau because Trudeau supports transgenders and gays, and they do not approve of that. And they made it clear. In Canada, absolutely. Not in the United States, in Canada. That they don't like it. However, they support Trudeau's policies towards Israel. If, ban Israel or blame Israel, that's fine. So when they have their bigger interest is really the demise of the Jewish state of Israel and the demise of the US capitalist, democratic, constitutional state, they go for it.
What about the left in Israel?
The left in Israel is being heavily supported by the Biden administration and those who fund the left in the United States, including Soros.
Including Soros. Even though he would be in favor of the demise of Israel, you're saying the alt-left in Israel...
The Jewish state, he's in favor of the demise. He's not against the demise of the Jewish state of Israel. He didn't support the Jewish state of Israel. He says, okay, yeah, Israel is a country, it's okay, but he wants the Palestinians to be there too. So he funds both Israeli and Arab Israeli organizations, as well as Palestinian organizations, to promote humanitarian causes and justice everywhere. Well, that's the Hamas-like justice is really what he's promoting, and blood libels against Israel. Which they have been doing all along.
It ends up being support for mass murder.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
So in simple terms, people would say he's just a self-hating Jew. Do you consider him that, or there's something other way to explain this?
He's not just. I mean, he's a self-hating Jew, apparently. But he can be a self-hating Jew without causing so much harm. The fact that he is able, and he was able, to build all this network, it's really, if you want to if you want to try and find, I know there are all kinds of reports about how much money Soros has been spending here and there and elsewhere. But again, it's not only because he is not transparent, because the money is going to so many directions, and the links and the influence are so many that even with AI, you won't be able to identify them. Why? Because AI is just another computer system. AI gives you, it compiled all the information and can access it much faster than regular systems. But it has what it has been actually fed with. And if you don't actually put that information into the system, they won't be able to identify it. So this is what is, it's really very difficult. And I actually spoke about creating a special application that would allow identification of activities such as the Open Society and Soros Foundations, as well as other, because Muslim organizations, radical Islamic organizations work in many instances in similar ways, and they are being funded not only by Qatar and Turkey and Iran, which receives funding from the United States. Hamas had received money from the United States, the Palestinian Authority receiving money from the United States as we speak, but also from others. So there are many businesses that operate around the world which have I don't know, a Turkish men clothing company, okay, which produces, which has a very expensive line of men clothing with stores in major cities, in very expensive shopping areas, in stores on Madison Avenue, on Rue Saint-Honoré, in Paris, in Piccadilly streets in London, wherever. And they are actually run by members of the Muslim Brotherhood who are based in Turkey, and they are funneling the money that they make from selling clothing, a very expensive clothing, to actors and activities of Muslim Brotherhood related organizations in the United States, in Canada, in France, wherever. So to find all these connections is not easy. It can be done, but it takes a lot of time.
It doesn't sound like there's a government that's interested in doing that.
No.
Right? Which is a major issue.
Well, and the government that may be interested in doing that are looking for bigger fish. I assume that the Israeli government would like to have as much information as it can. The question is, okay, so how do you approach this in countries that support them?
Right.
Because France now is supporting the, ICC wants to arrest Bibi Netanyahu and Gallant.
Well, I saw today that there's a very active Muslim Brotherhood group in Germany, and whereas the right-wing government wants to shut them down.
There are millions of Turks who are actually voting both in Turkey and in Germany.
And the left, seeing that they're calling for Sharia law and a caliphate, still says they can march because we believe in free speech.
Yeah, well, I don't know what their leaders think. Maybe their leaders think that they can outsmart the Muslim Brotherhood. I doubt it. It seems that they are actually having the upper hand, at least at the moment. And they are a minority. They are still a minority in everywhere. And yet they are very loud, and they are not being stopped, and money keeps coming. There was a hearing, I think, today in Congress about Northwestern University, contracts with Qatar and Al Jazeera, receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars every year, besides having, of course, a campus there. I've written about it early on. I listed the American universities that have campuses in Qatar and receiving millions and millions of dollars from Qatar. This has been going on. There were others who, there were some Jewish faculty who have been affected by this. Years ago, when they came, when they approached me, they asked for advice or what to do, and I said, well, go and sue the university. And well, no, we don't want to rock the boat. Okay, you don't want to rock the boat. This is what is happening. The boat will sink.
What was saying? Well, and it looks like Soros also funds Jewish organizations, right? Was he not primarily behind J Street at one point?
Well, yeah, yes, J Street and also ADL. And both denied actually, and that they received money. They tried to keep it hidden that they received money from Soros. Well, he created J Street to counter AIPAC.
Right.
That was the whole idea, to counter AIPAC, to counter the Jewish state lobby. Yeah, so there are many. His son is also, Alex has an organization also, and it's really, it is interesting because in the letter, in the statement that he released on January 31st, 2024, the title was Open Society's Fight Against Anti-Semitism. But in the article itself, in the statement itself, it doesn't talk about anti-Semitism. It talks, his father was a victim of anti-Semitism all the time. He knows what anti-Semitism is. But what he's writing about is really how the Open Society Foundation, the Soroses, are helping to fight against hate, to fight against race war, to fight against the whites, to fight against the police, to fight all the same slogans that you hear and statements from the wokes. This is what they are doing. So he even mentioned that Alex Soros had mentioned that the rise of anti-Semitism in the United States have actually led to the creation of the Biden administration national strategy to counter anti-Semitism. Well, instead of doing that, they are actually supporting anti-Semitism by supporting Hamas. That's what they are doing. And these are the policies that, this is how they want to force Israel to commit suicide. And apparently the Israelis are not exactly willing to do that, and they are standing up and fighting. It's a very sad situation, but that's what they are doing. Alex Soros was writing that he will, like his father, he will continue to fight anti-Semitism. And actually, when the Wall Street Journal had a big article in early June, when Alex Soros took over, the official announcement came that Alex is replacing his father. There was a very unique, interesting photograph also of Alex Soros at his bar mitzvah. Now, to see George Soros with the kippah in any kind of Jewish religious ceremony is not common. And this picture was given to the Wall Street Journal, which was really, instead of an article about him, or it was really a PR, it was to warn everybody that if you attack Alex Soros now, who replaced his father, you would be also accused of anti-Semitism because he's Jewish. I mean, it was so clear that what was doing. So I don't know, if people want to accuse me of being anti-Semite, they can accuse me of whatever they want. I have the facts. I cite Soros. I cite all Soroses in general. And these are the facts. If they want to distort them, they can distort them as they want. They have the media to do that. They are working with major publications, not only newspapers, magazines, websites, podcast, television, radio, everywhere, because they know that the medium is the message, and that's what they have been doing, buying up as many media as possible in order to spread their words and try to shut up those who oppose their policies.
Well, it looks like they're successfully getting their people into high positions. I mean, that seems to be a piece of the strategy. What I've noticed here is you'll see a lot of Muslims now on boards, in government, and senior positions, even in corporate world. And that, I think, was fueled by, that's maybe the wrong word, but driven by critical race theory.
Yes.
And, right?
So the DEI, that is, it is affecting the military, it is affecting the police, it is affecting the health system, it is affecting science, because space explorations, because they choose people by their color, by their newly declared sexual identity. Right. To functions which they are not actually qualified for. So this doesn't seem like a very promising future, and it's really, where there are elections, people should really look around and think carefully and vote for, if they don't like this, they should vote against it.
Well, that takes us to almost to the conclusion, because I was going to say, now you have an opportunity to tell us, how do we deal with this? What, besides voting, which in our country won't happen until 2025, you have it in the fall of 24. It's going to be happening in England, and it looks like the left is going to take over there. So what other strategies can we?
Well, because we are pro-democracy, we didn't realize for decades now how democracy had been used in order to diminish it, and the system is really now working against itself. So the only thing is to do right now is to try and get people who care about their nation, who care about their Western values, who care about their freedom, who care about their ability to earn honest living, who care about the values of the society, to vote against the system, and really look out for any kind of election manipulations, so that the electorate can be actually counted and they can win. But they should also choose leaders that have the guts and the ability to bring changes around. Politics is no longer as usual, cannot be as usual. They should have really brave politicians to represent what they want and be able to fight against really the demise of their society.
Wow. Well, on that note, I want to thank you immensely for taking the time with us, and to wish you well in your ongoing work. You are a warrior, and we really need you and welcome you and wish you well. I also want to remind everybody that we're in a war, and as much as we want the hostages home, and we do want the hostages, and dead or alive, I guess at this point, we mustn't let down our guard, because it's not just about the hostages. I think it's incredibly important for people to realize that Israel has to win the war and eradicate Hamas, which is, as you just described, actually a worldwide movement, not just the fighters in Gaza. It is affecting us now and here. So we need to really pay attention. So I want to just remind people of that and wish everybody well, and end with Am Yisrael Chai. And everybody have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much.